Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here at the Farnborough International Airshow at this historic airfield some 30 miles southwest of London. World's most important gathering, at least in the United Kingdom, for defense, military, industry leaders and aircraft from all around the world. This year gathering here to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Royal Air Force as the world's first independent Air Force. Our coverage here is sponsored by Farnborough International and Leonardo DRS. And we have with us Paul Everitt, the CEO of ADS, which is the Association of British Aerospace, Defense and Space Companies. And boy, what an amazing show.
Well, it's been a really fantastic week. We'd always like to see Farnborough as the most international of the global kind of airshow circuit, but this year has been particularly strong. Record numbers of US companies visiting with us, record numbers of Chinese companies visiting with us, and over 29 international pavilions, which is an all-time high for us.
And delegations all over the place. I mean, what, more than 40 delegations, I think, that were here?
Yeah, I think the numbers are always difficult, but yeah, a high number. It's clearly one of the places that the global aerospace and defence industry likes to come to. UK is always good, but Farnborough is always better.
And talk to us a little bit about what you saw as highlights. I mean, it was an intense week, densely packed, obviously, as most of the shows are. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday was jumping, but even still on Thursday, fair number of activity in the halls as well. We were there, and today, of course, just a terrific day to see all the kids out doing hopefully, attracting, as is an important mission here, to attract another generation to aerospace.
Absolutely, Fridays are always about the next generation and enthusing people to take part in our industry. But in terms of the highlights, certainly from a UK perspective, obviously the Prime Minister visited on Monday, made 3 really big announcements. So I guess globally, the launch of a new combat air strategy, Tempest, certainly from a UK point of view, that's definitely one of the moments. They don't come along very often, once in a generation, so this is our generation's turn, so to speak. Also, big support for the UK aerospace industry, more investment in research and development, particularly about the future of electric flight and autonomy. Again, strong global interest in that. And I guess thirdly, perhaps not such the biggest and best news for us, but a very strong statement from the UK government about the deal that they want to get with the European Union as we leave the European Union.
And of course, Liam Fox announcing some space investment in his trip to Washington next week. By the time this airs, it's probably, Liam Fox will have been in Washington. But Paul, let's talk a little bit about Brexit. I mean, that was in every single conversation across the show. Folks were talking about it. Everybody is putting a happy face on it in terms of minimization of damage to their companies. But privately, almost everybody's saying, look, we may have to move operations. We have to consider shifting work. We had a great conversation with Tom Enders of Airbus, and he said, look, we're already in sort of mode of sort of prepare for how this is going to turn out. Obviously, all the folks in the government, there is a recognition that it's going to happen. Question is how it happens, but it's 280 days. The EU put that notice out to everybody saying, hey, prepare for a hard Brexit. When you talk to people in the government on the hard Brexit side, their attitude is that's just a negotiating ploy, and we're in the process of negotiating. What are your member companies telling you about what and how they intend to inoculate themselves as much as possible from impact here?
I think 2 weeks ago they were very, very nervous because we hadn't seen, what we would see as a great deal of progress. I think we were really pleased a week ago, and when the Prime Minister came down, we now have a white paper that sets out, if you like, what the UK proposition is. And within that are all of the issues that the UK aerospace and defence industry were looking for. So a common rule book, continued membership of the European Aviation Safety Agency, frictionless borders, all good. And a major, again, I think the Prime Minister utilised a significant amount of political capital in getting her own party to a point where they made a meaningful proposition. So for us, it's around what happens now. So we're looking for a positive response from the European Union and for them to get down to some serious negotiations. Clearly, it's not a done deal yet, but we think we're in a better place, and I think people can see how we might get to a satisfactory outcome. In terms of preparation, yes, everybody's concerned. For us, the worst possible outcome is no deal. And I think that's a message that we've reiterated, and a number of major businesses, particularly Airbus, but also a number of other sectors, major sectors in the UK, have made those points very clearly too. So I think, whilst there are uncertainties and there are concerns, I think we think we're on the right course. I think the other thing that now we can start to perhaps acclimatise to is, unfortunately, we are going to go through an extended period of uncertainty, and to a certain extent there are some upsides from that. So if everyone thinks we are leaving, but we haven't quite yet left, that's actually perversely quite a good time for industry. Interest rates are favouring the UK in a range of areas, but also it's encouraging the UK government to be a bit braver in terms of what's our post-Brexit ambition. So the combat air strategy and the amount of investment that they've signalled for future aviation and aerospace technology gives an indication that the UK wants to remain a world leader and is prepared to back that with serious resource.
Do you, the next question I was going to ask you was on that, because the British government has tried to get a lot out of industry by investing actually very, very little in it. And that's always been a lot of pressure on the government to take its cues from some of its European partner nations, for example, France and Germany, which have much higher, in Italy even, much higher national investment rates in this technology. As, have you seen any cogent roadmaps? I mean, again, Commitments and Tempest is truly a generational. You could say you were here when that was announced. And the thing, I think, that to an American audience, there's an enormous amount of work that went into that system. It's not as if they just dusted it off. They've been working on it for a little while, insofar as almost a black program where folks have been focused on working on it. But from an investment stream standpoint, is the government doing enough? Is it doing enough in the right areas? Do you have a roadmap? Does industry have a roadmap that allows them to plan, not just against these spikes, sort of, which is great, but much more on a bread and butter level, given that, it's amazing the role that UK firms, small, medium, and very large, play in the global aerospace and defence ecosystem.
So I think we're beginning to get that. So here in the UK, if we look at the defence side, last year we had the publication of a shipbuilding strategy. We've now got publication of a future air combat strategy. I think we would already say that we've got a very well-honed complex weapons strategy. So those are good indications of a new and better way of working. I think around the civil agenda, we have a number of institutions, the Aerospace Technology Institute, which, whilst I recognise that there are a number of nations that spend more, I would argue that in the UK we spend better. We have a genuine collaborative environment. If you look at, whilst we have a couple of national champions in the UK, and that's great, but we also have a range of international businesses who feel comfortable in the UK and feel themselves to be part of the fabric in the UK, and that's because they can have a relationship, a collaborative relationship. They get the same airtime with government as the national champions, and that is different to what happens both in other European nations, but also different to how it feels in the US as well. So whilst we will never have as much money as others, I believe we can spend it smarter and with greater impact.
Well, right. I mean, if you look at companies as Airbus or Raytheon or Lockheed or General Dynamics, all operate in the UK as UK companies, not as foreign entities, but actually a fundamental part of the industrial base. Let me take you to the question of transatlantic tariffs and kind of the sort of brewing global trade war. I think folks, on the one hand, want to avoid it, but I think are perfectly happy with it going forward, and there will be casualties. So we've talked about the Brexit end of it. Yeah. From your standpoint and your membership standpoint, what are some of the concerns there as this, that originally started with steel and aluminum tariffs, seems to have expanded now to include several thousand items from that original core issue?
So I would say, at a fundamental level, the aerospace industry both has benefited from free trade and in fact has been a driver of free trade. That kind of interconnectedness, the ability to travel widely and freely is part of the way in which the global economy has grown. So any barriers to trade and tariff and non-tariff barriers I think are a lose-lose for everybody. So our focus, and certainly the encouragement that we give to the UK government, is very clearly that we don't want to get drawn into a trade war. clearly, there are others who feel that their economies will somehow prosper. I think that in the same way that we've seen industry in the UK make clear about Brexit and the Brexit concerns, I think we are beginning to see now in a range of countries businesses standing up and highlighting the concerns and the damage that can be done by imposing kind of unnecessary tariffs and putting up trade barriers.
Last question. Every year this show has gotten better. We were talking about where the media center was 20 years ago, which was a tent at the far end of the airfield. Then we moved over here, and now this is this beautiful, really magnificent building. You can walk in and out without getting rained on, so that gets you a little bit closer in. Great facilities, dining, food, bathrooms, which are, anybody who's been over here on this level knew that it was a little bit of almost looked like a mobile home with some bathrooms in it. So we're very thankful for that, and a beautiful roof deck as well. So every year you've been working to improve the experience here for all the folks who are exhibiting. Very smooth getting in and out of the show. I mean, the security stuff was secure, but still fluid, so you weren't waiting on the sort of lines of many, many years past. Every year you want to improve it. Talk to us about 2020. What are some of the things, some of the lessons you guys have picked up again from this show to try to make the next gathering even better?
So for us, I think we have worked hard to try and make it a good experience. I think for many years, like a lot of people, you think you've got a great air show, but I think there's our recognition you have to invest in it. So we have invested. So this is the latest, kind of the building is the latest part of that investment. But we're also trying to create a greater and better experience for people. What we want is for Farnborough to genuinely be the place where people exchange ideas, where there is real discussion about what the future of our industry holds, what are the directions, what are the new opportunities, as well as the platform for people to do business. So for us, I think it's going to be much more about the content and ensuring that we've got a rich seam of content that adds to the visitor and exhibitor experience. We don't want to take away from what exhibitors want to show, but we do want to create an environment where people really do feel this is the place to come to talk, to see, to understand. And I think in that end, I guess in the UK, Farnborough is very linked to a series of huge aircraft projects that flew in the post-war era. Unfortunately, it's very rare that there's a wholly new aircraft that gets to fly at an air show. But we can begin to, if you like, if not digitally, but link and understand the innovation and the ideas that are going to be driving our industry into the future. And you never know, we may even get a flying taxi.
That would be fantastic. Paul, thanks very much. Paul Everitt, CEO of ADS, Britain's Association of Britain's Aerospace, Defence and Space Contractors. I just have to say, though, amazing. This is my 11th Farnborough. Wouldn't miss it. Looking forward to attending another 11 of them, although my enthusiasm is a little dimmed at the very last few minutes of 7 days of this in the Royal International Air Tattoo. But best of luck. Look forward to staying in touch, and hopefully we can even do a little bit of update segments over the next 2 years as we go along to remind people about the key things you guys are doing here. Thanks very much.
Thank you.